Happy Saturday, everybody. It is not raining ice anymore in Texas. It's like
we got a dusting on Thursday.
We got
a
ice
dusting
all week. Kids didn't go to school. Everything was closed. There was 4 inches of layers of ice and snow. It was like an ice skating rink because there's no salt and sand trucks here. Tree limbs were breaking. Power was out. We didn't have power outage, but it was crazy, 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 crazy. So, just so you know, folks, hey, we're back.
Isn't it odd that Texas doesn't have sand trucks?
Huh?
I said, isn't it crazy Texas doesn't have sand trucks? All that sand they got in the western part.
And that sand trucks, salt trucks, or
I mean, when y'all get snow, when y'all get snow and ice like that, that is, that is interesting. But I mean, we've got nothing but rain. Like we got a dusting of snow Thursday morning, and then we've had nothing but rain ever since. Well, now it's actually sunny outside, but it was 9 degrees last night, so very frigid. But
so it's 42 here, but this is the highest
25 right now
had since last week, because last week we were in the low to mid 20s with wind chill factors in the teens. And I kid you not, every 2 hours we would get a new update about the next they were calling it bands, the next band of ice that was going to drop, or the next band of snow and ice that was going to drop. And it would snow and pour down ice, and it literally sounded like somebody was shooting BB pellets at the house. That's how hard it was coming down. And then it would stop for an hour or two, and then we would get another alert saying that the next wave, and it literally did that every day up until yesterday morning, when the temperature started climbing, stuff started to melt. But then it was dropping at night, so it was a mess.
Oh yeah,
it was a mess.
But yeah, well, I heard they had a crazy pileup down there too on the highway, like a 20-car pileup.
Always, because people don't know how to drive. It's like, the speed limit down here is 75 miles an hour.
Oh so yeah,
it's people down here driving with purpose. So it's like, so if there's snow and ice on the road and there's no way to clean them, why are you speeding?
You from up north, so right. About black ice. Like, for those down south who don't know about black ice, black ice is when just a sheet of ice on the road that you can't see. Right. Yeah. Like, be careful.
Your whole life. Look, black ice is the Black Panthers of weather. It's the Black Panther of weather.
That was a good one. Well, look, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to episode 110. We said we're going to start counting episodes out loud. Can y'all believe we've done 110 episodes, y'all? We really doing
that's
the
some
damn
serious
thing.
Content, Ronnie.
Oh yeah. So, make sure y'all check us out every week on Facebook Live, also on YouTube as well. Make sure y'all subscribe to the page. Y'all subscriptions help us out. So thank y'all so much for those who have subscribed and continue to subscribe. We got a great topic lined up. Huh? Apple Podcast. Yep.
Yeah,
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast.
It's been so long since we've been on there. I forgot about that. But yeah, we are back on Apple Podcast too. So make sure you check out all of our previous episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or no? I don't think we're on Spotify.
No, that's something that I think our social media marketing folks are working on. We're not on Spotify, but we will be.
Eventually, but Apple Podcasts and YouTube, So definitely make sure y'all subscribe to both pages and everything. But we had a great topic lined up for you all today. We're going to be talking about. Oh no, where's it go? Oh, restoration, intimacy after injury. Injuries are often accompanied by, sometimes depression, tension, anger, and low self-esteem, particularly in competitive, seriously injured athletes. So, when we talk about, when you're injured and things like that, but also talking about, love, sex, and intimacy, sometimes that can be a slippery slope for some people. And, a lot of people don't necessarily always get the proper education on, on sex, intimacy, love, and things like that. So, we're going to have a nice info-packed show on, some things to keep in mind, for our collegiate athletes out there, our professional athletes, high school athletes. You should not be participating in any of this. but write the information down.
They should be participating in intimacy without sex in high school.
Okay, there we go. Perfect reframe. That's a wonderful reframe. Dr. Pitts, I did want to say something else though.
Yes.
In reference to football and everything, I need to stop betting against your husband's team.
He listening to the show, Ronnie. I'm sure right now my phone is about to go off. He's about to text me. I'm waiting because I know he texted me and said that he was going to be listening. Let me see what he's going to say to you. Go ahead. I'll let you know when he texts me.
I need to stop betting against the Eagles, but I will say this though. The championship games were last weekend. But not the Chiefs and Bengals game was a phenomenal game. I felt real bad for old boy from the Bengals, Osai. I ain't gonna lie, I thought he blew his entire knee out. Did you see the replay when his knee buckled and he got it stuck?
Yeah, it was one of those one that made you wince for him.
Screw the penalty at that point. I thought he blew his knee out. But he was fine and everything. It just got stuck in the ground and everything. But phenomenal game. The Eagles and 49ers game left so much to be desired. Shout out to the Eagles for taking care of business. The one thing I will say about the Eagles that I have seen a resurgence of is that they do a phenomenal job of not allowing the game to have to fall on Jalen Hurts' arm. Yeah. Granted, his arm has gotten significantly better in each of his 3 seasons in the league. But I mean, to just win an NFC championship game by having 4 rushing touchdowns, phenomenal job by the Eagles and everything. The one thing I will say, and I always tell people this, speaking of highlights, if you ever want to see some phenomenal highlights, please go Google or YouTube the Eagles offensive line highlights from the championship game. Oh my God. I'm a lineman. So, I'm biased towards this. But look, I don't care about none of the receiver highlights, running back highlights, quarterback highlights. Those are all nice and cool and everything. But the Eagles offensive line, oh my God. Like, they had a play. I think it was their first rushing touchdown they scored. Miles Sanders scored it. Dr. Pitts, I don't want to get too nerdy here for you for a second, but oh my God, they ran an inside zone play. So for those who know what an inside zone is, basically a run inside between either the strong side A gap or B gap, or sometimes it can cut back to the backside A gap, which is basically between the center and the guard on either side. And with the Eagles team between the center and the left guard up to the linebacker, and on the backside, the right guard and the right tackle worked up on the 3 tech up to the linebacker, and it was just poetry in motion. I mean,
wow.
I'm sorry, I just had to get that out.
You just had to wrap your arms around that experience.
And look, hey, man, the Eagles offensive line is just, as when you talk about technique, just overall chemistry, communicating, working together, that is the epitome of an offensive line. It is just beautiful to watch. So I encourage you all to go out there this weekend and watch some of those beautiful offensive line highlights that they have out there, because it is a clinic every single weekend they go out there.
Can I answer a question? Have you seen, because I have a warped sense of humor. Have you seen the meme with Colin Kaepernick doing this scene from The Color Purple, where, remember when Miss Seeley said to Mr. "Until you do right by me"? And it's one with Colin Kaepernick with the 49ers stuff behind it. And he's "You do right by me." And I said, it was one of those things, right? It reminded me of, I want to say it was 2015, when all of the hurricanes just annihilated Florida from the south to the north. It was just like one hurricane after the other. It was like, who did the 49ers piss off? Like, what, the universe, the stars, what in the world is going on? That, like, you talk about the technical definition of Murphy's Law. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what else could go wrong?
Can you imagine like being on it? Like literally the only reason, not the only reason, the Eagles played really well, but the only reason that San Francisco became just literally docile was because they didn't have a quarterback.
Whoever heard tell us such great, you know what, Ronnie? And it was funny because Eric was, and I get it because we know stuff changes in football at the blink of an eye, right? And he's not a trash talker anyway. And he's watching the game. And he was just in chill mode. He was watching the game. And I'm waiting for him to get hype. And he wasn't. And I'm like, well, babe, y'all are going to win this game. And he was like, it ain't over yet. And I was like, but baby, y'all going to win this game. And it was funny, Ronnie, because every time they scored, he was like, I just need him to score one more time. And then he would say, I just need him to score one more time. I need him to score one more time and leave no doubt. For me, and I was like, okay, you got that, because who knows, that they hadn't said definitively whether or not Brock Purdy was coming back and all that. I was like, okay. When I was done was when they went to get ready to switch helmets and make McCaffrey the quarterback. I said, oh, it's okay. Like, because you like, what is going on right now?
It's like watching when Brock Purdy came back in the game, and everybody was wondering, like, is he gonna be able to throw? Is he gonna be able to throw? Like, I couldn't imagine for that offense, like, just how demoralizing that is. Knowing, like, bro, we can't throw the ball past 5 yards. Like,
and for him to stay, because y'all play hurt. And we talking about this today, right? We talking about injuries. Y'all play hurt, and for him to say, I can't do it, it's like you just felt like
he literally
all the air just
and it's crazy because once they said what his injury was, like, oh yeah, he literally cannot throw the ball. Like, for anybody who's familiar with that injury, they it's called the Tommy John surgery from baseball, because a lot of baseball pitchers, how they throw the ball, it kind of loosens up that UCL ligament in their elbow. He got his torn off. I would imagine torn off the bone. Yeah, he's not throwing anything. They're lucky that little duck pass he threw to McCaffrey. I think it was on like a 3rd and 5 or something like that.
Right.
They're lucky that one got off. But I felt so bad for the 49ers because I felt like we were really robbed of such a hyped up game. Like, and everybody, it's funny, me and my teammates in our group chat, when they showed Devontae Smith made that one-handed catch that ended up not being a catch.
Pretty. Oh, that was so pretty.
And we were all saying, like, one of my teammates was like, well, that's gonna come back and bite the 49ers. And we were like, bro, it's like the first quarter, like, if that 7 points is the reason why the 49ers lose, then well, they shouldn't have won anyways. And then everything else kind of happened. But you had said something 3 weeks ago, and it was funny. Like, when I went and looked at their schedule, you had mentioned it, like, outside of the Chiefs, and when they had played the Chiefs earlier in the season, that was that was the week that Christian McCaffrey got there. Had the doors blown off him by the Chiefs. Outside of that, everybody else they played, outside of the Seahawks, and I think it was one other team, the Vikings, they didn't really play nobody. Like, and you may now, that's no knock on the Cowboys, no knock at all.
They didn't. They had the easiest schedule in the league.
Yeah, and it showed. It
is what it is. They did.
And it ended up being, like, honestly, even if Brock Purdy never got hurt, I don't know. The one thing I will say for the Chiefs is, if they cannot stop the Eagles from running, Mahomes won't have a chance to get out there and really defend, give them a chance.
Due to his miracle plays.
Yeah, like, because what's going to happen is, if they get down, now granted, he's been down 10, 14, 17 points before, but those are teams who
not against the Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles, if they get ahead, like, we know one thing they're going to do. They are not afraid to run the ball and allow the running to win the game. They just did that last week.
They'll run the score up. And that'll be a smart thing to do, because you can't leave space for Patrick Mahomes to get back in it. Andy Reid ain't no punk. So you already know he's going to pull something out the high school playbook. My husband texted me.
No, I was going to ask you, did you hear former Texans running back Arian Foster? He alleged that the NFL is scripted. Especially after this week, with the Kelsey brothers, they call them the Kelsey Bowl and everything. Andy Reid playing his former team and everything.
Yeah.
There's been this alleged tweet that was tweeted in 2015 that predicted the next 10 years worth of Super Bowl winners. And allegedly for 7 years so far, they've been right. And they have the Eagles winning this year. I believe they have the Chiefs winning next year, the Bills winning in 25, and so on and so forth.
Oh, wow.
But, the accuracy of it, if it was tweeted in 2015, has been, under question. But I say all that to say, when you mentioned Colin Kaepernick, I seen a meme where he said Colin Kaepernick reading the 2017 scripts and finding out he's getting blackballed.
You know what? It's so ignorant.
And but yeah, no. So outside of that, so I think the Super Bowl is going to be exciting. I think
Pro Bowl games were fun to watch.
The little skills games and everything.
I like that. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I like that. This is cute. I like it.
It would. I really wish there was a way where you could guarantee no injuries for the NFL players that play in the Pro Bowl and like really have like the best of the best play. Like we get that in basketball.
Like the flag football. Flag football was fun when we was kids, Ronnie.
It was, but I mean, when you play real football, like for me, like I don't play like flag football and stuff because sometimes I forget. I just
you got to be hitting people. See how you do? You
just gotta just catch somebody one good time. But it was nice. I mean, it's nice. The Pro Bowl doesn't have the same luster it used to, but that's all good though.
So let's talk about sex, Ronnie.
All right. Did you see what's his name dropped a new album, Smokey Robinson?
No, but I don't know if it was my son or somebody. I heard somebody say something about it.
Oh, you gotta listen. You gotta hold on. What's the track list?
Smokey bringing it at 70-some years old.
Oh, hold on. Now I don't want to listen to the song. What's the album? The album is called Gasms.
Oh dear.
He got a song, How You Make Me Feel, I Want to Know Your Body, Roll Around, You Fill Me Up, I Fit in There.
Okay. Nuh-uh. You making that up.
I'm gonna send you the album.
Get out of here. Smokey having his past midlife crisis. He getting his second.
I think Smokey like 80, 81 or something like that.
I thought he was in his 70s, but he getting his second win. Wow. Okay, Smokey.
He said he fit in there.
Shut up.
And speaking of sex, a sex fact for everybody out there: men can produce sperm up until the age of 90, give or take.
That I knew. So I had heard that before. I have heard that.
Fun fact of the day, yeah, men can produce sperm up to 90. That's how Hugh Hefner was able to be out here still pumping and dumping late into his later years. I don't know. I know for women, there's kind of like this biological cutoff. The older you get, the more risk it is for you and possibly the baby and everything, stuff like that. That's just something that, you all really kind of have no control over, right?
Who said something about
I think for men, like, there are some men out here, they 50s and 60s now having kids. Like,
yeah, simple. be pimping at the baby graduation. Look, don't even remember they got to graduate.
Look, I can't. After about, I would say the absolute latest for me would be 40.
I had always said that any kids that I was going to have, I would have to have them by the time I was 40 or I was done. And I'm not even going to lie. I'm so glad that I had Andre young because listen, these nieces and nephews and friends cheering and everybody else, I'm like, y'all go right ahead with these young kids. I'm 55 years old. The last thing on earth I'd want to still be dealing with is kids in high school.
I'll be 48. I'll be 48 when Eli. I'll be 46 when Eli graduates high school.
Right. See, that's
so shoot. Yeah, I mean shoot. But yeah. So all right, let's get into this. Let's get into this topic. What you got for us?
So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna toss some questions out there to you that's sort of like prompts, and I just want us to have this fluid exchange. Is that all right? So I want it because this topic, if I'm honest, sex is one of my favorite topics. Intimacy is one of my favorite topics. But because we're looking at it through the lens of how does sports injury impact that, it is going to create space for us to really have a huge part of the conversation touch on the mental health piece, right? And that being said, I want to start with this. What do you believe is the impact of a sports injury on the athlete's life holistically?
I would, depending on the energy, not the energy, the injury. I think what really impacts the psyche of an athlete is how for me, I would imagine, the mobility. Like, for example, for me, when I had tore my meniscus, when you get your meniscus repaired and everything, it's non-weight bearing for 6 weeks at the minimum.
My mom had that injury and had to have surgery.
Yeah, I had that 4 times within 2 years, and 2 of them were within 3 months of each other. So, like literally for one semester, my spring semester in 2013, I was on, out of a 16-week semester, I was on crutches for 13 of those weeks.
Wow.
And I would have to crush the class, whether it was snow outside, whatever. I was crushing the class and everything. Used to have my leg propped up on the chair beside me so nobody could sit beside me and everything. So for me, it was just like, that was my worst semester in undergrad, because it would just be some days like, bro, I'm not crushing the class. Like, I'm just not,
You're over it.
Yeah. Now, I believe at some universities, student athletes who nowadays they have like the little, little scooters and everything. And now they, student athletes get assistance and whatnot. We didn't have that at VSU. It would have been nice, all them golf carts we had on campus to get, wheeled around. But so I would imagine mobility will probably be the biggest factor for an athlete psyche.
What about the pain?
So I would imagine the pain too. Yeah, like for me, I actually, when I had my first knee surgery, they gave me the I can't remember which one of the hard pain pills it was, but it was one of them. I think it was like the oxys or something. I actually hated them because they kept me up. I didn't get sleep with them.
Wow.
So for me, I was just up. And after the anesthesia wore off, about maybe a day and a half after the surgeries, if I just like turn my leg a little bit, you just get this shooting pain through your entire body. So for me, like, when I had, not being able to be mobile for 6 weeks and having to deal with the pain, and then being able to, you literally have to relearn how to walk again, and, be, more mindful of your steps and everything. So it's a tedious process. So if you're an athlete going through it for the first time, or somebody like me who went through it 5 separate times, you really have to be able to keep in mind, like, it is a temporary thing. And the most important thing is getting yourself as healthy as possible to minimize the chance of it happening again. For example, don't be like me. Like, I didn't listen the first time at all. I stayed non-weight bearing, but one of the things that I did that I highly regret now is, like, for example, crutches hurt, for anybody who's ever been on crutches for any amount of time. No matter how many rags you have on it, on the pit part or the hand part, they're uncomfortable. Now the newer crutches, they look like they're more comfortable. They're a different design and everything. But them old pogo stick crutches, they don't feel good.
Right.
So it'll be sometimes if I'm in the house, instead of, grabbing the crutches, I would just take my other leg and just hop around, just hop on my other leg. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm strengthening this leg and whatnot. All reality, I'm still 290, 295 at the time, and all that weight is being bounced on one leg. Right. So, when my right one got, better and everything, and I, started the season, my left one tore, right. So, and then because I rushed through that process, I tore it again 2 weeks after coming off crutches. So, you can be hard-headed and learn the hard way, or you can really focus on getting better, because the more you try and rush through the process and get back out there, you really expose your chance to the self of an injury happening again, whether it's the same injury or a new different injury. Because, for example, if you injure your thigh, now your hamstrings and your other muscles in your leg have to overcompensate. So when they overcompensate and you don't take care of them and you just, rushing back the thigh and everything, the quad muscles, then you have a chance to, pull a hamstring or mess your groin up or something like that. So I always tell athletes, if you have a serious injury where you have to be sidelined for a few weeks or, possibly your season is ended, prematurely because of injury, yes, it is a long process. It is a tough process, but make the most out of the process if you can, because trying to rush through the injury, you just leave yourself susceptible to having another one really quickly.
I think that it's important to know, and based on just a little bit of history that you just shared and what you've shared over shows, is what does that look like as far as the lasting effects, and how has that impacted you relationally? Because you've talked about that a lot. You've had 500 concussions, not really, you've had 32. You got your concussions, your knees.
Donate my brain to the Smithsonian at that point.
All of that stuff. And how do those lasting effects that the injuries have had on your body, how does that impact you relationally? Whether it's with your son and crawling around and chasing him around as a 1.5-year-old, or in your marriage, or what does that look like? And how do you navigate that?
After my playing career was probably the biggest transition, mentally and physically. They always say as athletes, if you don't continue to train at the level you were training, but you eat the way you were eating like you were training, then, you're going to have some problems. And, to make a long story short, I definitely had some problems with that part. But a lot of that was due to me, not really, I always tell people, my relationship with, working out was kind of like, I always tell people, when I worked out for literally like probably a good 9 years of working out, it was literally with the mindset to get as bigger, stronger, and faster as I could. So when I went into the gym, my focus was on getting as, big and strong as I possibly could. And, so there was a lot of ego with that. There's a lot of ego with lifting and being the strongest on your team and things like that. So, but there was for a purpose. The purpose was for football and everything. But when I didn't have that competitive purpose anymore, it took me a while to really refine my purpose of working out. Obviously afterward, the obvious reason is, just to maintain your health and wellness. But, it's easier said than done when, you've been fixated on a certain style of working out for a very long time and having to retune that style. So I've literally had to, really just reframe and refocus how I address, working out and maintaining some type of shape. Because now getting out of shape now and trying to get back in shape is a whole lot harder than it was when I was 18 and 19. So, I'm trying to maximize, the rest of my prime years and everything like that, by staying in some good shape. I do have a 1.5-year-old, so he is very active. If I had his, because he wake up and be on go, like,
wake up running.
He ain't got to stretch. He ain't got to, really get
you like the baby E-Train, baby. Remember those commercials, Ronnie? The baby E-Train. Wait, he'd be dancing.
Wow. He would you took it back. Wow. I do remember that. So that was a big adjustment. And obviously I put on, quite a bit of weight, after playing football because I continued to eat like I was playing. So I had to really change my relationship with food and everything because I wasn't working out as much as I was. I wasn't working out as hard as I was. So I had to really retune that part of it too. And then nowadays, and I will say this too, no knock on Virginia State by me saying this, but I think it's just, the fact of the matter is, because of the limited resources we had at the time when I was playing, there wasn't a lot of, necessarily education and resources given on an injury like mine. And, I think, had I been at a bigger school or something like that, where, there's more more resources and stuff like that. So there's, more ability to really rehab and retrain the proper way. Do I think the transition from how I train playing to how I train now would be a lot more difficult. I don't know, maybe not. But I think maybe my fear around because for a while, for a couple of years, I believed that I wasn't gonna be able to do nothing with my knees anymore. I was just gonna have to just play cautious the rest of my life because I have no cartilage between my knees anymore. So it's just bone on bone. And I turned 30 in 9 more days, and God willing, if I see about 50 more summers, that's I need my knees. But my knees might not see 50 more summers. They might see about a good 20, 25 more, But I have to be mindful of that, because for those who don't know, for athletes who don't know, God forbid you come into a situation where your knees are, like mine. Most insurance companies only grant you 2 knee replacements per knee.
Wow.
Now,
so anything beyond that is out of pocket, is what you're saying.
Basically. And so the way it worked now, for all the out there who are listening, if you want to fact check me and let me know, please do, because the technology might have been updated. But from what I was always told is that when you get a knee replacement, it lasts about 10 years. And that's if nothing goes wrong. Then you can get a second one if you need to. That one is good for 10 years. After that, you're on your own.
Wow.
So for me, if I make it to 40 and God forbid I need a knee replacement, and that one gets shot at 50 and then I get one at 50, well, from 60 on, then I'm on my own,
Right.
So that is something to be mindful of too. So for me, while I still have some, plenty of good years and good summers ahead of me, it is really, super important for me to get into the best shape that I possibly can and, really reduce the chances of me having to deal with that conversation sooner rather than later. Because the further I can push that conversation, the better.
So that's a good segue, because one of the things that I think is really important for our audience to learn or to expand their awareness around is the psychological effects of your sports injuries, right? And one of the things that we talk about clinically, folks, is a lot of times when we're working with our clients, one of the things that we do as an intervention to help them navigate some of these challenges is we talk about normalizing some of their experiences, right? Because so oftentimes, whether it's a sports injury or, just whatever it is that's going on in your athletic world, sometimes you feel like it's just happening to you. That's life, right? We have a tendency to want to isolate and think that we're on this deserted island all by ourselves, and there's nobody on the face of the planet that could possibly understand what it is you're going through. So I think that it's really important for us to normalize the psychological effects that injured athletes go through and give them some insight. So in your opinion, Ronnie, what are some psychological responses following injury that we would typically see athletes go through that they can expect to happen, so that they don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's just happening to me? What are your thoughts around that?
Definitely a lot of anxiety. More centered around, will I recover? Will I have a full recovery? Will there be any hiccups? How long is rehab going to be? If you're a college athlete, does this burn into my eligibility? Do I have to redshirt now? Am I going to lose my scholarship? Am I going to lose my starting position? A multitude of things. Because like I said, depending on the injury, if you have like a season-ending injury or something that's going to, sit you down for a while, those are kind of some of the natural thoughts that just come through your mind, because once again, we feel the most comfortable when we're able to compete at what we love doing and doing it at a high level.
Yeah.
That's what we do it for. So when you take that away from us, whether it's because of behavior or injury issues, then you're going to see a lot of maybe temperament, maybe a lot of different reactions, maybe some defensiveness, maybe some isolation.
That failure-based depression.
Right, exactly. Especially especially if you feel like, you got yourself injured or something like that, or if you weren't being careful or being careless and stuff like that. Especially a lot of times now we see where professional athletes, where it's highly discouraged of them to do any other athletic related things outside of the sport and outside of season because, God forbid, you're doing a commercial shoot or, you just out there playing with the boys and whatnot. And, you mess your ankle up or you tear your ACL or something, some freak accident, because those things happen. Now you get hyper aware of that. And as opposed to being able to enjoy it, you play tense or you think about it. And one of the things that athletes that we know is hard to do is it's hard to be your best out there when you're playing tense.
That fear of re-injury creeping in.
Right. Because when you're out there playing tense, when you're playing careful, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Because you're not just flowing. You're not with the flow of the game. You're trying to go against it and control it.
Yeah.
And when you try and control everything around you, especially in the heat of the battle, you can't be mindful of everything that's going on around you. So you just leave yourself more susceptible to a freak accident or a freak injury because sometimes, what do they always say? Sometimes you fixate on something so bad, you end up getting it, good or bad.
Right. I think that was what ties in perfectly with what you're saying. And it reminds me, and we talk about it all the time, right? Is like how, at the professional level, when Dak came back from his ankle injury, it was evident, or at least I thought that it was evident, that he was playing real cautious. Like it was almost, there were times that he was almost flinching. Like you could tell that there was this idea in his head that he was afraid of getting hurt again. And then fast forward, to now the injury with the thumb and having the plate in his hand after thumb injury. But Jalen Hurts said it best last week before the game. He said, I go out here with a bullseye, he said a bounty. He said, I have a bounty on my head each and every single game. And I thought that clinically that he did an outstanding job of normalizing that. And one of the things that the commentators repeatedly touched on during that game against the 49ers is there was nothing about his play that suggested that he was playing afraid. It was like, because they hit him a couple of times and it was like, I clenched my teeth. So I was like, they fell on the shoulder.
It's like you once I always say, like, when you play football, you have to know if you're out there, you have to do, like, when I was injured, I knew for me, like, it got to a point, the first season in 2013, the first season I had to deal with my knee injuries. When my right one was healed and I tore my left one, I couldn't push off my left leg like I could my right leg.
Patrick Mahomes had high ankle sprain.
Halfway through the season, I literally told our coach, like, Coach, we can't run no inside zone to the right because I can't push off my left leg fast enough and get to my responsibility fast enough without the guard, really helping. Now to the left, now going to the left, I'm good because I'm pushing off my right leg. I'm good to go, and, we had to really, find a way to incorporate that and mix it in where it didn't become an obvious thing that people could pick up on. But I knew my limitations, but I knew that I had to find a way to adjust and make it work because I couldn't use the excuse, oh, I'm hurt, oh, I'm injured. I'm out here playing, So I think a lot of times, like, when you go through a serious injury, it can weigh on your mind about getting re-injured and stuff like that. I always tell athletes, like, especially if you play football, injuries are a part of the game. But when you're out there, like, you can't play scared, you can't play timid, you can't play worried because the moment you think more about what's going on around you than your assignment and the flow of the game, you leave yourself to be injured.
Right.
Because it doesn't take much. If you get caught, you've probably seen it a couple of times too, like just some offensive linemen, they always tell you, if you stop running your feet, you get ran up on. If you're standing straight up and your legs are locked, when that running back come behind you or the quarterback come behind you and they clip your legs from under you, now you're gonna snap your ACL or your LCL or your PCL because you had your legs straight instead of bent. They tell you, like, you cannot be lagging during the play or in the heat of the moment because things happen.
Yeah. So you when we were talking about the psychological effects, you also brought up some of the emotional responses, right? And that's the connection. That's the link that connects the intimacy to this entire discussion around sports injury, right? So when we're thinking about some of the emotional responses that arise in response to athletic injury, sadness, feelings of isolation, irritation, lack of motivation, frustration, anger, your appetite. You talked about, your appetite changing, sleep issues, feeling disengaged, anger, right? So you have all of these things. And what we know to be true is that, there's this gender bias rumor that circulates around intimacy, particularly physical intimacy, that suggests that men want it all the time. And I disagree with that.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think men, because of testosterone and stuff like that, they give us the automatic notion that, yeah, the higher man's testosterone, the more they want to have sex. That can be true in some cases, but women have an incredibly high sex motive. Like, I think studies show, and I think it can be safe to say that some women have far higher sex drives than most men. Women can orgasm faster than we can, and well, not faster, but more in sequence. You all can have multiple orgasms farther quickly than we can. We need a little time to recharge and everything, reboot. We need a little, little system update for a couple minutes and whatnot. Then we'd be good to go and everything.
You're a fool. Did you say a system update?
Just a little system update. You got to restart the system and everything.
Y'all got to reboot. So
need about 20 minutes. Needs about a good 20. A good 20, we'd be good to go.
You are simple. So I want to tie that, right? Because one of the things that we didn't say yet, I'm going to say it now, as it relates to the psychological effects and the emotional responses of athletic injury, is that y'all go through the stages of grief. It's like you didn't, nobody died, but like you said, especially those season-ending injuries, or like, for example, and some of them, because the NFL season goes longer than the collegiate season, some of those things are in the forefront of my mind. So they talk about Kyler Murray and when he's going to come back. Oh, we talk about Brock Purdy. When is he coming back? Oh, you talk about some of the other.
Yeah, Brock Purdy ain't going back no time.
DeMar Hamlin, is he going to come back? Oh, there's so many question marks around some of these really, really, really major athletic injuries that people make the mistake of thinking that you only go through the stages of grief if somebody dies. No, the stages of grief are about loss. And in the case of athletic injury, you've lost your season, you've lost your mobility. You, like you said, perhaps you've lost your starting spot. The list goes on and on and on. So go through these stages of grief, and within them, you mentioned the isolation a minute ago. You experience the denial. I can't believe this happened. Like you said, if you feel like the injury was your fault, and you go through these stages, and you can experience any or all of them at any given time. And those are the types of things. It's like this perfect storm: the psychological effects of injury, the emotional responses to injury, the stages of grief process of injury, that can all contribute to the loss of intimacy in your relationships. And the overarching umbrella for all of that, what we know to be true clinically, is stress. Stress will destroy libido, regardless of whether you're a female athlete that's been injured, or a male athlete that's been injured, or a transgender athlete that's been injured. Stress is a buzzkill. It can just, like, no part of it. You don't want any.
It's funny. I be hearing a lot of dudes. I be hearing about. I keep on seeing this this commercial now. It's called Hims. It's like a company that I guess like sells like their version of Viagra and whatnot.
Okay.
But I see they market it to like dudes 30 and under, and I'm just like damn, 30 and under, like, you that stressed out, like you.
Right.
Like, so, because a lot of times, when you're, like you said, when you're stressed out and stuff like that, it affects your performance, not only on the field, but, if you're in a relationship, it affects your performance in the bedroom too. Some dudes might experience not being able to, get hard or be fully hard or remain hard for a period of time. I don't know what goes on with a woman when they're stressed out, because I'm not one, so I'm not going to sit here and guess
Our
what
libido
happens.
tanks too. Our libido tanks, and as women, you and I'll touch on this personally and professionally from a clinical lens, right? The same type of bodily responses that men go through when their stress level is really high and their libido is adversely impacted are the same things that women go through. They're just manifested differently. You might not want to be touched. You might have, your sensory perception may be skewed. What would normally feel good might feel like broken glass or sandpaper scraping across your skin. You don't want to have intimate conversations. You don't even want to think about it. You just, it's like everything can irritate you. What would normally would be perceived as sensual or creating some form of arousal is now an irritant. It's an annoyance. It's like you feel like your head is going to pop off, literally, because it's like, that's just not the headspace that I'm in. And that's where a myth can be debunked, right? Because again, there's this gender bias that says that men are ready all the time, when in actuality, that just is not true. It's not true, because there is an emotional element to physical intimacy. There's an emotional element to intimacy without sex. And as relational beings, and you've heard me say this oftentimes, relationships are not intellectual exercises. They require a fluid human connection that has a very critical and major element of emotions that is going to be necessary in order for that fluid exchange to be holistically fulfilling, and for it to make that connection that much more fulfilling and sustainable, if you will. And I think that's why it's so important, because 99.9% of the time, when you say the word intimacy, so oftentimes people automatically default to sex, but there's so much more to intimacy than that physical connection. And what you'll find, particularly as you mature, is that if the other aspects are not appropriately aligned, then it makes gratifying physical intimacy that much more challenging. You can orgasm, but you don't have to have another person to do that. Speaking of that, this is not, this in by no means is an endorsement, but I don't know if anybody, there's a docuseries, Ronnie, that came out back in March of 2022 on Netflix called The Principles of Pleasure. It's phenomenal. I watched it the first time I watched it by myself through a clinical lens. And the second time I watched it with my husband. And he said quite objectively, every human being that is, sexually active or interested in learning about intimacy, whether it be a man or a woman, needs to see this docuseries. And just to give you a quick backdrop of what it's about for those who are not familiar with it, The Principles of Pleasure is a documentary series centering female sexuality and explores things like the orgasm gap. There's 3 episodes ranging from 45 minutes to 60 minutes, but it's all about taking viewers on a journey to help viewers learn more about a topic that doesn't get enough attention from mainstream media, women's pleasure. It's similar to the Netflix docuseries, The Goop Lab, but it's a more educational approach. And what it does is it create space for scientists and sex therapists and everyday folks of all, preferences to learn more about female sexuality and the stigmas faced by our society. The reason why I encourage everybody to check that docuseries out is because it is so information packed, Ronnie. It is so information packed. And when you factor in something like athletic injury that can impact both parties' libido, it's really important to understand this relationship to this word intimacy. And what a lot of people don't know is that there's actually 5 different types of intimacy. And when you can get a better understanding of what these types of intimacy are, they can be instrumental in helping you to build a deeper connection with your partner. So even in the midst of an injury where, for example, one of the things you said, I chuckle because I have a weird sense of humor, when you talk about a groin injury, I'm gonna keep it PG, keep it G. There are some things that you might not be able to fully appreciate when your groin is hurt, right?
Oh, you talking about you get hit in the nuts?
I did not just say
we are adults. We are grown.
That's actually not what I was thinking. But
but yeah, no, you talking shit. You want, hey, look, you want to talk about something that will bring even the strongest of men to their knees. Look, because it happens in sports sometimes. Sometimes
did you see the NBA game? One of the 2 players that got ejected from that game because he hit him in his region.
Yeah, now when you get caught off guard and they catch him while you relax, you talking about something that will I'm talking about, man. I don't wish that pain on nobody. Well, I'm sorry. Carry on.
No, you're fine. So I want to connect the dots for folks in the instance of time. What is intimacy? What is intimacy? Intimacy is, technically speaking, it's personal, it's private, it's about connection. It is about the different ways that we can connect with our partner or with really anybody that we're in a relationship with, because of the different types of intimacy that you have, because it's not just about physical intimacy. So it can be, it's all about fostering a sense of closeness in any relationship, romantic or otherwise. And it's going to require your understanding that intimacy is emotional, intimacy is mental, intimacy is spiritual, and intimacy is physical. And to your point, when you talk about the psychological effects of injury and the emotional responses that arise when an athlete is injured, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical are all aspects of the athlete's life that can be adversely impacted by injury. So think about it this way. Intimacy is connection and it's attention. When I say that, Ronnie, what's your immediate thought about how intimacy can affect your relationships when you're battling an injury?
If you are a player who I guess is a significant enough player, meaning that you have a prominent role amongst the team, whether this is a D1 athlete, professional athlete, whatever the case may be. I think in all those aspects of intimacy, a lot of times, and you hear this a lot from former players and other players, that being injured almost kind of makes you feel insecure at times, because when you're injured, you're not able to do the thing that makes you feel the most like you. When you already don't feel like you can be who you are, because a lot of times athletes, we subconsciously are automatically, correlate who we are with what we do as athletes. And so when you're not able to do that, you don't feel like you. So when you don't feel like you, that presents a lot of other challenges. When you're anxious, when you're stressed out, when you're feeling, symptoms of depression and stuff like that, how does that come out behaviorally? That comes out with, maybe isolating yourself, being irritable and upset with your partner when they're, just trying to connect with you. You might be, self-sabotaging and pushing them away. You could be, very condescending or dismissive of how they're feeling because, I think a lot of times what doesn't get highlighted is, the spouses and partners of athletes and, the role they have to play of just always being understanding, especially if, you're a professional athlete's, spouse and whatnot, you have no, I'm not going to say you have no choice but to be understanding, but for more times than not, most of the, people who are in those roles of being the partners of professional athletes who, make a lot of money, for you, it's like whether they're injured or they're healthy, you have to be understanding of both aspects of them. But that injured one definitely is a little bit more tougher to deal with because, when you're standoffish, dismissive, isolating yourself and just always on guard because of the insecurities that are coming out, then yeah, that's an issue. And I think that's really important for, especially for athletes to have those conversations with a therapist or a professional who can help them understand, once again, if you are, identifying, through your sport, through your profession and stuff like that. And because of your injury and stuff like that, you're having all these insecurities about, your confidence, your self-esteem, who you are, what you're able to do and things like that. That will bleed over into other areas that because of how well you played your sport, you might never really thought about how much that could be a detriment to what the other things you do. Being a great husband or being a great wife because you're a great athlete. Well, when you feel like you can't be a great athlete, well, I would imagine for a male athlete, well, how can I continue to serve you and provide for you or be worth of you when I'm worthless to myself, when I'm worthless to my sport now? That's projection. That's a projection of an insecurity onto the partner. And if a partner isn't, understanding, or if they are also dealing with maybe, things of their own, what happens is instead of two people coming together to address the issue, now it's you versus the person and the issue just standing over here, free to themselves. So be mindful of that. When you're injured and things like that, if you start to feel insecure, you start to feel doubts and worries, or your anxiety becomes, really excessive and stuff like that related to, your performance and things like that, it will probably be very wise of you and helpful to, talk to a professional, therapist or somebody who can help you work through that psychologically and emotionally, because it can be a tough process, but having that support around you, any person who will tell you when you're going through an injury, having good support around you, especially having a good partner around you, So, I think that can severely impact all aspects of intimacy between an athlete and their partner.
A part of my interpretation of what you said is that the reason why intimacy is so important in an athlete's relationships is that it truly allows them to feel seen and heard. Because if they're not seen and heard, then the guards go up. And when the guard goes up, that by default breaks down the intimacy. So when you speak about that understanding piece, there has to be a willingness of the injured athlete and the partner and whoever is in that person's circle of influence, or they're those that are intimately connected to the person, to have a shared sense of vulnerability and I say this all the time, right? Where there has to be a willingness to meet that athlete in a place of common humanity with an open mind and an open heart, because you're not them. I mean, the reality of it is there's some things that we just don't want to say to you all when you're injured. You don't want to, I understand. No, you don't. It's like, just because you may have been a former athlete and you may have been injured, unless you actually walk a mile in that person's shoes and your situation in life is 100% identical and exact mirror image to them, you don't understand what they're going through. It might be better to say, I'm here to support you in any way that you need me to, because that's that mutual sense of vulnerability that creates that emotionally safe space for them to know that you're not going to try to fix it, but that you're here to just listen and to be a sounding board and let them tell you if they want you to offer any solutions or inventions or anything like that. So when we think about the types of intimacy, the emotional intimacy, the mental intimacy, the spiritual and the physical, and then there's experiential too, right? The emotional intimacy piece it's all about cultivating that sense of closeness relating to how you and the people that are closest to you feel empathy, respect, and communication. Because if you don't have somebody showing you some empathy, some respect, and not communicating with you effectively, Ronnie, what happens?
Doesn't work out. Does not work out.
Yep.
And I think for athletes, I think one of the things I definitely tried to avoid as an athlete was, any added, stress or, worry outside of what I already have to deal with as an athlete. you know, and sometimes relationships can become stressful, you know, as an athlete, you know. Tom Brady, you know, that's a great example, you know. His wife kept on saying, come home, be a family man. He was like, nah, gotta get these rings.
My football's my first love, not y'all.
Right. And, you know, he ended up losing his wedding ring, you know, chasing Super Bowl rings. And, you know, that's just, I'm not gonna say that's the only reason why, but it was a big part of it, you know. But that happens, you know, especially, you know, somebody like that who feels like, you know, they are a once in a generational athlete, you know, who can, you know, leave a legacy that probably nobody else can ever match. I would imagine it's really hard to walk away from that in the moment where it's like, how do I know this is it? Or like he said on what, Tuesday or Wednesday mornings on that beach. Did you know that somebody bottled up a thing of sand and it was on eBay, and as of last night, it was going for $100,000
because he walked on it?
Huh?
Because he walked on it?
Basically, and that's where he announced his retirement. $100,000 on eBay.
Okay.
So, you know, I say all that to say, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a professional athlete at the apex of the sport or a Division III athlete who is just trying to, you know, enjoy their, you know, youth and live out a dream. You know, when, you know, injury occurs and things like that, you know, injuries can expose some insecurities within us as athletes. You know, a lot of us as athletes try to hide our insecurities through our sport, and the better we can be at our sport, the more we can hide our insecurities. But when you get injured and you're not allowed to showcase, you know, the good side of you, you only recognize the bad side of you and things like that. Yeah, those insecurities come out, and as a result, you start to push people away. You start to isolate yourself. You start to make things personal. You start to internalize a lot of things. And oftentimes, yeah, your intimacy with your partner and everything will begin to suffer. So yeah, be mindful of that. You know, be real mindful of, you know, not just the physical effects of an injury, but the, you know, the emotional and psychological effects as well.
I think that speaks to the mental / intellectual intimacy piece that we like to call like the meeting of the minds, right? It's this place and space that, to your point, you're not able to engage in your sport anymore for a period of time or maybe permanently, but how are you being engaged in a way that's satisfying and challenging and mentally stimulating for you, that helps you, that helps twofold, that helps you to be able to, as the injured athlete, that helps you to be able to communicate in a way that provides those that love you and care about you insight, and that helps them to develop a deeper understanding of what's going on inside your mind as it relates to the injury. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about the mental stimulation during those periods when you were injured and couldn't play?
I mean, you know, my parents were very supportive, and, you know, they, you know, helped out a lot, and, you know, they were there for me. You know, my friends, you know, they did what they could and whatnot. But for me, it was new. I had never had an injury like that before. I had never had where I couldn't, like, literally, I could not walk, you know. So a lot of it was new for me. And like I said, you know, because I didn't really get a lot of proper education on, you know, about the injury and what it looks like, you know, post-op, you know, physical therapy, and then also, you know, when you're able to walk again. I had a lot of expectations of what I thought I was going to be able to do post, you know, being able to walk again. That didn't happen. And, you know, had I had, you know, my expectations maybe, you know, met with some more facts and the reality of the situation, maybe that could have gave me the better, you know, mental capacity to be receptive of encouragement and support. Because I think a lot of times, once again, like, you know, when you are so locked in on your sport and, you know, your sport entitles who you are, when you're not able to do that, you really just kind of get hyper focused on being able to do that. Yeah, you hear the support, you know, you thank, you know, you're thankful for it and stuff like that. But as far as being able to appreciate it and recognize it, I can't speak for every athlete, but I know for me, if the support was cool, but if I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, it meant nothing to me, so, but I'm not saying that's every athlete. Some athletes, maybe they have it put in perspective for them in a way where they're more understanding of, the reality at hand and what's more important in that moment. But for me, I was just trying to get back on the field so I could play ball, whether or not you supported me or not, I was going to do what I had to do to get back on the field to play ball. But yeah, I did appreciate the support. I did have support, but for me, as long as I was able to get back on the field, then yeah, it was, it was cool with me. I don't know how I would have, I had a year left of eligibility, so I know how that felt, walking away from a year. Walking away from a year of eligibility was not fun, but I knew I was tired of, being miserable of how I had to get ready for games, and that wasn't fun. Yeah. So, and yeah, that, at that point, after the third surgery, support really was just kind of like null and void. It was just kind of like, I'm being punished at this point. Like,
who did I piss off? I said, it was like, who did I piss off?
Right. Like, it's like, bro, like, who, so, at that point, like when I knew, I've said, going into my last season, I knew that was going to be my last season. Hell, I almost didn't play that season, just because of, what it took just to get out there. So when I knew that was my last season, I didn't really tell a lot of people. I told a couple people, but yeah, even if I, would have had the support and everything, like, no, knowing how my body felt at the time, there's no way like any support would have been able to, change my mind on even if I decided not to play that season, I would have been comfortable with that. Just because of the physical toll of it. So yeah,
Okay. So there's just two others. The spiritual intimacy, which I really believe is subjective, and it really comes down to your value system and your personal code of ethics. So, people can figure that out, because the reality of it is some people are religious and not spiritual. Some people are spiritual and not religious, and some people don't subscribe to either. So that's one that really is left up to the person to have those discussions based upon what that looks like in their life. And then the physical intimacy, as we said in the beginning, that's not just about sex. That's about what feels good. It's about sharing and giving and getting and expressing what feels good. It's about connection. It's about excitement. It's about giving and getting pleasure and closeness. And that's not just received through sex. So for example, if you have sustained an injury that doesn't allow you to engage in sexual intimacy the way that you normally would or at all, there's so many other ways that physical intimacy can be demonstrated, whether it's holding hands or cuddling or sitting close to each other, or other forms of skin to skin contact that can stimulate those nerve endings in your body and give you what you need. What it all boils down to from the physical component, Ronnie, is it's what do you as the injured athlete need? What is it that your partner or the people that are closest to you that love and care about you, how do you need them to demonstrate closeness to you during your time of injury that feels beneficial for both of you, and keeping that in the forefront of your mind? So when we think about everything that we talked about today and how that plays out where your intimacy is concerned, there's ways to combat injuries, right? That can keep you from isolating, that can keep you from being consumed by the emotional and psychological elements of the injury. Give a couple of pointers that you did, and then I'll give a couple, and then you can send us on our way for today.
For me, like I said, I think, having a is, once again, depending on what your injury is, depending on, whether you're a collegiate athlete, professional athlete, whatever the case may be, having, all the information that you can on, what your injury is, what the recovery time is, what rehab looks like, physical therapy looks like, X, Y, and Z, depending on what your injury is. Especially if you have a season-ending injury or injury that requires, surgery and things like that, you want to be able to get all the information up front that you can, so that way you know exactly what you're dealing with. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's your body. At the end of the day, you know your body best. Now whether you have a hard time communicating that, hopefully your doctor is really good at helping communicate and let them know what exactly you're feeling and what's going on. Outside of that, once again, like I said earlier in the show, having an understanding that the most important thing when you're injured is getting healthy.
Yeah.
Yes, wanting to get back on the field, wanting to get your starting spot, wanting to get back out there and play with your boys or your girls if you're a female and stuff like that. Getting back out there and doing what you love. Yes, I know for you personally that is the most important thing, but objectively, the most important thing is getting healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're not healthy and you rush through the recovery process, once again, you leave yourself susceptible to possible further injury or a different injury that you'd had, didn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as families, friends, partner, spouse, whatever the case may be, if you have a loved one, an athlete, husband, wife who's an athlete, and they're dealing with an injury, whether a season-ending, nagging injury, lingering injury, whatever the case may be, the most important thing you can do is have compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
All right. Compassion leads to understanding. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have understanding, you have acknowledgement to know that that person, that athlete, depending on their emotional intelligence and emotional awareness and things like that, dealing with their physical injury, how they respond and how they receive your compassion and understanding. If they tend to push away, if they tend to be dismissive and isolating, obviously the injury is, all injuries are personal, but what I mean by they're taking this personal is that what we're seeing possibly is an athlete who is identifying who they are through their sport. And when you see an athlete who's not able to do what they love, sometimes what happens is they feel like they're not worthy of love.
Yeah.
Sometimes the truth of thoughts can set in. Sometimes, negative thoughts and negative patterns that, because they were so good and because, they could easily focus on the sport, they didn't have time to give to that and they could just put it on the back burner. But when you get injured, sometimes you have no time but just to sit around and just think.
Yeah.
And, so if you're a partner or a spouse of an athlete who's dealing with an injury, be mindful that oftentimes when they lash out, if they're angry, irritable, isolating, things like that, it's not you.
Right. It's not about you.
Right. Don't make it about you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just that person expressing an insecurity, projecting an insecurity onto somebody else. Right. So compassion leads to understanding. So the best thing you can do as a partner, spouse, husband, wife is to, be compassionate and let that lead to understanding of what your specific partner or spouse needs from you in that moment.
Yeah. I would just add to that I think that it's really important to focus on the present. You can't undo the injury. It happened.
Right.
And what we know to be true is what you feed grows. So if you're just in this persistent state of wallowing, truth be told, it's going to make the pace of your recovery that much slower because you're not focusing forward. You have to focus on the present. You have to focus, just like Ronnie said, on getting healthy, and don't give yourself permission to wallow. If you do, wallow for 24 hours and then move on, because you cannot undo it. It is what it is. But you can get past it, and hopefully you can be renewed and refreshed and return to the sport. And if you're not able to because it's a career-ending injury, then there's other things. You are more than your sport. Honor your feelings. You have to own them. Don't blow them off. Don't struggle them. Don't act like it don't hurt emotionally and physically. Own your feelings. Be honest about them and talk them through and out with somebody that is a neutral party that is capable of providing an emotionally safe space for you to say it how you really need to feel. You need to scream, yell, cuss, throw stuff, break it, whatever you need to do that doesn't cause injury to someone else or further injure you. get those feelings out and honor them. And then lastly, let the people who love you and care about you help you. Accept the help and support. You are not alone. Isolation is deadly. It is absolutely positively deadly, because if you choose to romance all of that depression and all of those toxic negative thoughts, not only will it compromise your recovery, it will compromise your mental health. And you don't want that. Ronnie, I have a message for you before you close us out. Somebody has said that the non-front runners are headed to the Super Bowl. Fly, Eagles fly. That's what somebody has told me to tell you.
He got it. He got it. Look, like I said, I learned quick. All right. See, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to root for them this week. I'm going to root for them this time. So that way, my subconscious pick wins, so.
You know what?
Because obviously rooting for them out loud does not work in my favor. I mean, rooting against them out loud does not.
You need to try the reverse approach.
Yeah, some reverse psychology and whatnot.
Send us home, Ronnie. It's time to go on about our day.
I know, right? I'm gonna try and enjoy some of this sunlight as much as possible. But yeah, man, thanks everybody for tuning in.
Wait, one more thing. You had a really great idea during the week that we were talking about with our marketing folks. Tell them about the idea. Let's start plugging that now, and then tell them see it.
Oh yeah, so if you are an athlete, former athlete, current athlete, HBCU, PWI, professional athlete, overseas athlete, if you're an athlete at general, parent of an athlete, whatever the case may be, and you feel like you want to add something to the show and contribute to the show, by all means, please reach out to us on Facebook, or do we still have our email or no?
Facebook, Instagram. We have the email. People haven't emailed us in a long time. I would just say, can the email?
Yeah, reach out to us
on one of the social media platforms.
Yeah, reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Suggest topics for us. We have the show lineup for this whole season, but Ronnie said, the co-host, he really the boss. I pretty much do what he say. But what he said if somebody have a topic that they want to talk about, we're gonna alter the show for that week and we're gonna talk about what they want to talk about. I said, okay.
Yeah, no, if you're an athlete and you want to talk about your testimony or share your experiences being a student athlete, professional athlete, we want to have you. I think at the end of the day, we're a grassroots podcast. We're not here for the clickbait. We're not here for the attention seeking. We try to put out good quality content each and every week for our listeners out there, because this is important to us. Athletes matter. Their mental health matters, and we all want to see our athletes, professional, collegiate, high school, whatever the case may be. We all want to see them out there and do the sport that they love because they love doing it. And, do it in the best way, the best possible mental, physical, and spiritual health that they can have out there. And so we're all about giving our athletes a voice, allowing them to have a voice on this podcast, because, athletes are the reason we're doing this. I'm not a former athlete. You're a spouse of an athlete, a parent of a former athlete. So athletes are important to us. So, if you want to come on here, holler at us, chit chat, chill with us, whatever the case may be, by all means, once again, we have predetermined topics for every week. But if you just want to come on here because that specific week works best for you, hey, what do we know about sports?
Topic ideas too. We're not opposed to talking about this. Like, we're talking about the topics that we believe are hot and really need to be addressed from an athletic and a mental health perspective. But we absolutely are totally open to you giving us show ideas and coming on and contributing to the discussion around those topics that you want us to touch on. Totally.
We can never have too many ears and boots on campuses and in the streets and everything. Like, the more boots we have on campuses, the more people we have subscribing to our YouTube channel and stuff like that. As we grow, we try to grow our content and, make sure that we, giving you all the best content each and every week. So, definitely, once again, make sure y'all go on our YouTube page, hit that subscribe button, like our videos and everything, because that benefits us and it benefits you all as well. So that's all I got for this week, Dr. Pitts.
All right.
Go ahead.
That's it. Our social media manager said that she's gonna do some double checking to see about getting us on Spotify so that we can continue to broaden our audience. And we love y'all. We appreciate you. Tune in next week and we'll see you. Enjoy some Pro Bowl games tomorrow and can't wait to see flag football. Haven't seen flag football since I was in 8th grade. Woo! So looking forward to that. Think it's going to be a lot of fun and have a great weekend. Everybody stay warm.
My birthday's in 9 days. So
his birthday's in 9 days and it's Black History Month every day, 365 days a year, Ronnie.
When you have friends like mine that tell you only get to choose either the first half or the second half of the month. So, you know.
That is so disrespectful on all the
levels.
Be
biracial in America.
Bye, y'all.